2 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law per Governor Baker's extension. The public will not be allowed to physically access this school committee meeting. The meeting will be conducted hybrid. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
States of America,
Republic
which
for which
stands
it
one
stands,
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment. Comments can be
Brad,
emailed.
Dick Early's here.
Comments can be emailed in advance of the 6:30 p.m. start time to lran@whittier.tech.ma.us. All comments will be recorded to the record, and all attempts will be made to mention them live during the meeting. Any emails received during the meeting will be mentioned at the following meeting. Approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I move the approval of the December 8th minutes of the regular school committee meeting.
Second.
So moved.
Any questions, discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. LaBella,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Haviland,
Yes.
Dr. Testaverde,
Yes.
Mr. Irving,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
Yes.
This is true.
Yes.
Treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Tucker.
I would like to approve the treasurer's report for December.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. LaBella,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Haviland,
Yes.
Dr. Testaverde,
Yes.
Mr. Irving,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
Yes.
This is true.
Yes.
Student reports and communications. Ryan's not here this evening.
He's not unable to make it tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Superintendent's report.
Good evening,
Ms.
Mr.
Lynch.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Tonight, for informational purposes, I have personnel action, hires of 2 teaching assistants, a sped team facilitator, cosmetology instructor, administrative assistant to guidance and admissions, a maintenance mechanic, a desktop and network support manager. I also have 2 instructors for our vacation boot camp that we held over the holiday break. For evening school, for basic masonry, basic woodworking, electrical fundamentals, 3 advanced manufacturing instructors, 2 marine technology instructors, and our nurse. I have resignations of our computer network systems technician, our guidance secretary, and a cosmetology instructor. Tonight at the executive subcommittee, we met earlier this evening to discuss the FY23 budget. At that meeting, we began with a 6.74% increase, which will be reduced for the next executive subcommittee meeting. We're still waiting for the state numbers, and we have been told they will be released on January 25th, 2022. At this time, there is not an MCAS update. On Friday, December 10th, I did a WHAV interview. I was able to give a brief update on the news here at Whittier Tech. He has asked me to go on that show monthly to give updates about what we're doing here at the school. On Monday, December 13th, I attended the remote Merrimack Valley Chamber Board meeting. On Wednesday, December 15th, Marjorie Ringrose from the Smith Foundation came, or we did an online interview. We discussed our plans to work with senior high school students from our district schools. On Tuesday, December 21st, Desi had a COVID webinar. Desi continues to update guidance on close contacts, quarantine, and other COVID protocols. On Monday, January 10th, we had an MSBA meeting. At this meeting, we received final approval on our OPM, which is left field. Some updates on our COVID numbers since we last met. As of yesterday, we had 223 students that were positive with COVID and 26 staff members. To say I was thrilled that it snowed on Friday, I can't even tell you. I did snow dances, but it was able to give us a little bit of a respite so that we could have another day of quarantining. So we're still struggling with COVID, but I do see light at the end of the tunnel. We've decided to follow Haverhill's lead and have a half day this Friday. We will have our students in school until 10:43, and then we will have our staff leave at 11 o'clock. This will give us an opportunity to do a deep cleaning of the building, so we're ready for next week, which is also midterm time. I have to commend the staff and the students for taking all of this in stride. None of us were expecting this. None of us were planning for this. And everyone has just worked together to do what's best for our kids and for our community. Staff has certainly been stretched, but we are getting the job done. We've had many discussions about learning loss of last year. I'm growing increasingly concerned about the learning loss of our students this year. We've had so many students out of school due to COVID, and there are certainly gaps in their learning. Ms. Jensen and Ms. Fay will discuss some of the things we're doing this year to help our students. But before Ms. I just changed what I was going to discuss. Ms. Fay and Ms. Jensen will discuss a little bit about some of the things that we're doing this year to help our students learning for the gaps of last year. But as we're planning forward with the budget for next year, we're starting to look at how we can do things differently, thinking that COVID will probably be with us next year as well. Are there any discussions?
Any questions? Ms. Lynch?
Okay,
Thank
and I
you.
guess we're ready for Ms. Jensen and Ms. Fay.
Learning loss presentation by Katrina Jensen and Dr. Kelly Fay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Lynch, and school committee members. I'm Katrina Jensen, the coordinator of data and assessment, and this is Dr. Kelly Fay, the coordinator of curriculum, grants, staff development, and we will be discussing grade 9 learning loss. So we're going to only talk about the class of 2025 tonight. In May of 2021, an assessment was given in both English and math to see where they were. All incoming students took this exam online on either iPads or Chromebooks. The assessments were based on the 8th grade standards, which is the grade they were finishing. This next chart shows how they were in English in May last year. So 66% of the current class of 2025 were either not meeting or partially meeting the English standards. For math,
Excuse me.
we had about, yes, I'm sorry.
One questions at the end or as we go?
What are we doing at the end, Charlie?
Okay.
For math, about 55% were either not meeting or only partially meeting the 8th grade standards. Because of that, Dr. Fay is going to go over some of the things we've implemented to help with that learning loss.
Good evening. As Maureen has said in the past and currently tonight, we have at our school learning loss intervention coordinators. We had 2 learning loss coordinators specifically address the grade 9 students with the administrative team. The main areas of concern that they were seeing with our grade 9 students were executive functioning. That's really like how to manage your time, how to process assignments. The students were really struggling with doing homework, really identifying what's important and what's not. Social skills, low academic skills, and behavioral concerns. What we as a group, really the way that we put it is that these students missed their entire middle school experience. So when you think about a middle school student and the behaviors they exhibit, that is what we have been seeing with our grade 9 students. Things that are not typical, playing tag outside after lunch, like not able to not keep their hands off of each other. Just some really kind of striking things in addition to very low academic skills. In light of this, as an admin team and the learning loss coordinators, we kind of came up with a learning loss plan on ways that we can help these students. Our goal overall was to show improvement in both academic, social, emotional, and behavioral issues. As Katie said in her slides earlier, 66.4% of our grade 9 students were not meeting grade 8 English language arts standards in May of 2021 and 55.1. What we also identified is that 80% of our students had a below the 6th grade reading level. And that data was collected in November utilizing our Lexia Power Up program. We purchased that program out of a grant last year with the idea that we knew we were going to have some gaps in learning loss, but we did not know that we would have as many as we do. In addition to this, the learning loss coordinators that met with the administrative team held a meeting with all grade 9 teachers throughout the building and then administered surveys to the teachers to really identify what they were seeing within their classes. From that survey data that was taken in December, 64 students were identified as struggling in one class. 15 students were identified as struggling in 2 classes. 9 students were identified as they were struggling in 3 separate classes, and 1 in all 4 core academic classes they were struggling. 19 of the struggling students academically were then also listed on a separate survey as having social emotional concerns that we felt like we needed to address. So different things that we have implemented so far throughout the year. We now have mandated that all grade 9 classes utilize what's called Power Up Lexia as part of their curriculum. And that's really a reading program that's teaching students grammar skills, word skills, comprehension skills. It's significantly needed, so they're doing that within their classes. In addition to that, when the students go to their exploratory vocational week, they are also doing 30 minutes each day, because if you figure the grade 9 students, we don't want to lose that week of academic work that they really truly need. The grade 9 English teachers are keeping track of how the students are doing in their technical area and then utilizing that time during their English class to meet with kids and really address the different needs that they have. And then they're also including the vocational time grades into their rank book in English class so that the kids know and realize, I can't just blow this off. It's going to be counted. My teachers are really looking at it. Maureen has also hired a new adjustment counselor, and that adjustment counselor is going to be working with those 19 identified students who also had academic and social emotional needs. So that's really what we've been doing so far. But in addition to that, we're still continuing to work and examine. Even today, we had a meeting on really how to continue to help our students move forward. Because as Superintendent Lynch has said, we thought we were going to be focusing on the learning loss of last year, but now we're also beginning now to identify that there's significant learning loss for this year.
Questions, anybody? Mr. Tucker?
Well, yes, I'd just like to ask, have you had an opportunity to address the 9th grade in an assembly situation where you have given them the same presentation that you've given to us?
So I think Principal Aganis is going to talk a little bit about it, but next week is our mid-year week. And during that time, the freshmen go to what we call our freshman halftime show. And it is an assembly really for the entire week for them, where they do various skills that we have identified here to try to help them.
So you're bringing them into the
Yes,
issue, and so
Yep.
they are aware of what we expect
Yes.
from them and how they
yes,
can get
as
there.
well as in their English classes with the Lexia work. They're really beginning to see how they're progressing and how they're moving forward.
Well, thank you for addressing this challenge.
Yes, thank you.
I have
Mr.
a
Lavella.
question.
Go ahead.
Oh, Kelly,
Hi.
my concern is how are we dealing with the parents in regard to this situation? Have we notified them of the new programs that we're doing? Are they aware of the significance of the children's delays, both academically as well as socially concerns? Have you heard feedback from them? Has the parents actually come out and addressed us or approached us? What's the status with parent-school communication in regard to this very significant issue?
Well, we did, as Maureen mentioned, we did run a camp over the December break. And so all of the students that were struggling during term one, we sent letters out to the parents to let them know we were offering this and why we were offering it, because their student was struggling. And we did have some students that came. We had some parents reach out to us to say, will you continue these services because my student is struggling? So we have been communicating with the parents.
I think with the parents, it's been individual, for any students that's having difficulty in a class, the teacher reaches out, those kinds of things. But I think what Ms. Fay and Ms. Jensen are talking about are really our school-wide initiative to kind of handle these things school-wide versus on an individual basis.
Thank you.
Mr. Lavella.
Yes, I got a basic questions. When you say that the students in the math say, I think it was 66 or 64% don't meet, what are those levels?
So.
Like if, do they get 100 math questions and 20 means a certain amount, you get 40, is that how it works?
So, we always go with what the DESE has laid out for guidelines. So we're using their chart for what is a meeting score. So we just do a ratio. If we don't have the same amount of points, 72, I do a ratio. So I am using the Department of Ed standards to make sure that we are staying comparable. So we're always doing apples to apples.
Now, do we have any previous data? Like 3 years ago, what the percents were?
So previously, we always used to do a Stanford test, which was different than MCAS. In the last few years, we've tried to transition. This is the first year we did this and did it online to mimic how the kids actually have been taking the MCAS throughout their middle school, elementary, and now they'll take it in high school. So this will be like our baseline for this type of data.
So this really is an initial analysis.
This will be initial, and then next year we'll be able to add on to it. Yes.
Because we then, basically, we haven't had any previous data to say, well, before the pandemic, this is what the baseline was, and now we're 20%. See, when you say 66%, that's an eye opener. We don't know that before the pandemic, it was 40%.
Yes, and on top of that, we had the year without the MCAS, so that is another
Right.
gap. So
So
we'll
we're gonna be going forward, we're not using history.
exactly.
Another question I have, I don't know if you have this data. When you say, do we have a breakdown by districts?
Yes.
And is that percent pretty nominal across the board, or are certain districts higher and lower, or
There are discrepancies between districts.
there are?
Yes. Mhm. Yep, and we can certainly share that with you.
No, I don't know. I just want to make sure, we're not intensifying certain types of districts where that maybe there were less, of an impact on the pre-pen, or whatever you want to call it,
I will say it's across the board, this is all coming out of concern from the ninth grade teachers that have said, we have never seen a class
You're right.
struggle with these things, right?
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are really kind of saying, you know, they're having to go back and teach curriculum. For instance, you know, I'm thinking biology. They're having to go back and teach cells, which they've never had to teach cells at the high school level. That's always been at the middle school level. But in biology, if you don't know anything about cells,
Right.
you can't learn the next part.
Correct.
So the teachers are while dealing with behaviors in the classroom, they're dealing with that, and they're having to go back and redo their curriculum to meet the kids' needs at where they currently are. So, you know, these are teachers, these are very experienced teachers
Oh, I know.
that are really seeing some concerns.
I just have one more question. And now, you know, with other, you know, districts, are they at the same levels as this, or, you know, like, if you talk of, say, pick any of the 11 communities, are they seeing the same type of reaction, or we don't know?
I could certainly try to look on the DESE website and do a comparison, but
Yeah.
I mean, my son is a freshman this year at another district, and yes, it
Yeah.
is. It is, like Dr. Fay said, they missed middle school.
Right,
You know, they had 1 year of middle school, is 6th grade.
so this is
7th and 8th
just
grade was,
unique to Whittier.
no, yes, it's not unique to Whittier.
It's more of
Yes.
a,
Across the board.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's-
I wouldn't say global, but it's more,
Yes.
maybe it is.
And even
Situation.
at that, when
Yes.
you think about all of our 11 sending communities, this 9th grade group came from very different experiences.
Yes,
Some were fully remote, some were hybrid, some did half and half. So all of our kids are coming with a different experience of school last year
Right.
and what school looks like. And now, as one of the teachers put it, it sounds so crazy, but they actually had to train the students to build stamina of sitting at a desk.
oh, yeah,
Because they said, I did my math in bed last year. They sat in their bed and they worked on their computer, and now they are in a school, following rules, at a desk, in a classroom. All those little things that you would never think about are all coming into play now.
I just got one more comment. I think it's very commendable that we're being proactive. Do you have, I hate to put you on the spot, any type of expectations that hopefully by the end of the school year, they will be closer to being at the normal level, or this could be like a 2 or 3 year program?
I can jump in a little bit. I can say anecdotally, we're already seeing progress with the things we have in place. So, you know, we had this discussion earlier today. I'm thrilled about that.
Good.
That being said, this is going to be a continual thing, right? So while we're doing it for this class right now, we're probably going to have to make sure for the next 8th grade, future 9th graders, right? So this is something this is going to be a constant thing for 2 or 3 years at least.
But I mean, this program that they're instituting now, you know, is that going to carry on to these students when they get to the 10th grade?
Yes.
If we have to.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think that for kids consistently about what we're doing and what the expectations are key, for sure.
Thank you.
I have a couple
This
questions.
is the freshman coming in this year. I know we couldn't measure it necessarily, but did we see the same thing last year as well? But because they had only been impacted by 1 year, it was less severe, is that?
The teachers last year said the freshman group was the best they've ever seen. So, but we're unsure, you know, we were so worried about just being in school. We're unsure of why that was, you know, maybe they were just happy to be in school because they hadn't been the year before. We, you know, vocationally, they were here, I think around this time, they came in full time. So we made steps last year to make sure that they transitioned, and I think they were very happy to be here. I think they felt safe. So I would say both academically and socially, we're not this behind.
And then as far as the students that have been in high school since COVID kicked in, are we seeing any regression with, say, seniors? Or
I think the seniors are definitely the most well situated because they had I think the most traditional high school experience. Even the juniors, I think they were freshmen when they were here and then we went out. So, when they chose their shop, they really didn't even get to go to their vocational area. So, but the seniors, I think, are doing great. But the juniors are also doing well. You don't see it as much. And then the sophomores, like I said, that are now the freshmen of last year, it's real. That's why the freshman group is highlighted so much. Because everybody else seems to be, even though there's learning loss, I'm not saying that, but they are attacking it better, more efficiently.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Connor, do you have a question?
Is the middle schools across, our districts, are they using the same testing tool and, closing those gaps that are identified so that, when we get the incoming ninth graders and the following year, another class comes in, are these gaps expected to be closed by the time they reach us? And also, how long do you anticipate our students to, the majority of kids to close the gaps? And we had a week during December, but are we going to do it in February vacation? Are we doing it April vacation? Is it happening, during the regular school year?
So I can jump in. That right now, that is our plan, is to continue the learning loss during vacations. We had about 25 kids participate during the holiday break. We hope to see those numbers increase for February and for April vacation. That's really a valuable time for us to do some of this kind of work. As far as we have 11 cities and towns, and not everybody does the same thing. And that has been the struggle always. It's just been more highlighted this year because everyone had their own remote hybrid plan for school. So, that is the struggle, is bringing kids from 11 communities into one school. But it's definitely been highlighted this year just because of the differences in learning plans for last year.
And I think, as Maureen had said earlier, we believe we're going to continue to see these issues, because if we had 200 kids with COVID, the middle schools are also seeing that. So those students are having gaps in their middle school learning, and that's just going to transition to us as well. So we, through our SR 2 and 3 grants, we have continued to keep the learning loss interventionists, the learning loss coordinators. We're continuing to keep the programming, the boot camp, so that we can do whatever we possibly can to help these students.
And what about the students that are missing like a 10-day of school at this point because of quarantine? How are they all being, like, that's a huge chunk of us, it's a school week.
Right.
And it's a huge chunk if it's an academic week.
Right. So that is something actually we addressed in our meeting today with our staff. That's a completely separate thing, because now we're addressing the learning loss of students that are missing school right now. And that, to be honest, is the real struggle, because if kids are home, last year at least they would be remote on a computer. This year that is not allowed. So that's been the difficult piece. We're trying to look at ways to reach out to kids and to do some tutoring, but to be honest, when you have 25 to 28 staff members out of the building, I need all those hands on deck to run the building. So, those plans are still kind of being put forth together.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, somebody had asked whether or not we expected this to be, a 1-year kind of thing. I think we need to be realistic. Our expectations need to be positive, that we're going to make growth, which I think Maureen pointed out very aptly. However, we have to be cognizant that it's going to take years. This is not a 1-year deal. We have lost years of schooling, and we're going to take years to catch up. We're going to do everything we possibly can to mitigate that problem, but we have to be realistic. We want progress. We're expecting progress, but you cannot expect that you're going to make up 2 years worth of school in 1 year, or even at one partial year, because we're still doing the current curriculum that we're doing.
Mr. LaBella.
I just, not to reiterate what Dr. Testaverde said, but I read today that the CDC now believes that this virus, Omicron, a different distributor of it, is eventually going to get to everybody. And that's going to be the only way in, with America, economically, ethically diverse, is going to get to herd immunity. So this could be, these things could be happening down the road for the next 3-4 years. So I think now that we're addressing it at the beginning, we're going to move forward, as Dr. Testaverde said, but also we'll be able to look and see if we have to change direction, because I think each year, for a different ninth grade, it's going to be a different set of circumstances.
Exactly.
For sure.
Anybody else?
But Mr.
Thank you.
James.
Thank you very,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Oh, Mr. James had something.
Oh.
Brett, does the guidance staff continue to meet with the students as well?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's a really important part of this piece as well.
Yes, and Maureen, as we said, just hired the new adjustment counselor, and she's tapped to really work with those significantly identified students.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Principals update, Mr. LeGaines.
All right, tough act to follow there. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Lynch, rest of the school committee members. Just a few reports here. Some positive stuff. Our Whittier sports continue to move forward with their seasons. Up to this point, I want to thank all the athletes and coaches and everybody involved for following the protocols to continue that and the fight against this COVID to keep our kids playing sports as well. Staff and students, as you heard, are preparing for midterms. They will start next week, January 18th, and end on the 21st on that Thursday. During the midterm week, our vocational coordinators will be hosting the freshman halftime show. And I believe there was a question here about the freshmen. It's like a whole week assembly, the freshman halftime show. So all freshmen will be exposed to engaging presentations, activities throughout the week. Tuesday, the freshmen will be doing physical education activities separated into stations, health, 2 half gym stations, and mindfulness training. On Wednesday, there'll be various team building activities. Jenga, it's called. It's a building block and get to know each other, just regular socialization, and a cup tower where they're stacking cups in the gym. Just some fun stuff, tug of war, and a basketball challenge. On Wednesday, the guidance department comes in, presentations they're going to have on shop selections, our clubs activities to get the kids involved. They'll be doing presentations as well. And also our seniors a few seniors, leaders of the school will be answering questions for our freshmen, like a question and answer. And also the APs will come in on Thursday, assistant principals, and our Above the Influence crew. If you remember Above the Influence, which is the crew that talks about the negative effects about drug use. Also Skills USA will be there on Thursday. And then we have Erin Polanski, who's a motivational speaker, is a superintendent of Old Colony, that's going to come in and talk to our kids. So they have a full week during the midterm, and hopefully those assemblies will keep getting them up to par, as they say. Before the break, it's important, you heard Superintendent Lynch talking about how fabulous our staff and also the administrative team, as you see. We enjoyed some fun activities together. We had the second annual chili off, and with 10 staff members who cooked their own chilies. And this year, I'm happy to say that Mr. Beaton won the trophy this year with a brisket-based chili, and he got the trophy. Also, we enjoyed a holiday potluck extravaganza, which was held in the curriculum office. And we're looking into more fun activities with the staff, just to keep the morale going. As you heard that, you know, it's difficult every single day, but they roll up their sleeves and come to work for our students. Also, the holiday fund, again, for the students, 17,000 has been raised. And between Thanksgiving and the winter holidays, we were able to help about 150 families and students. I want to thank that all have donated up till now. This fund, as we know, is a small way as a community, and we can make things different and better for our kids. Just a couple calendar things. Term 2, if you believe it, it's flying through. Ends Friday, January 14th, and you heard next week at midterms. Then report cards for the term 2 are going to be issued January 28th. So we are cruising along, and you know, it's been a lot of work for our staff, but they are here, like I said, and they're ready to go. And we've been plowing through this for our children. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
Well, I just was gonna ask about COVID testing. Do you do any of that either school-wide or for specific individuals, or is it available at all?
Yes, we signed up for the program that the state gave us at the beginning of the year, and what's been the game changer is the test and stay program. That we do that during the day. We have a bullpen of nurses that were hired as well, and you know, so far so good. As much as they've been going to work in the past few weeks, and you heard all the COVID cases. Hopefully things are, you know, the curve is getting lower, and we're able to, you know, keep these kids in school.
If I can jump in too.
Yes.
I would like to thank the city of Haverhill. They were able to supply us with 200 or so test kits for our staff. Every staff left here before the holiday break with test kits, and they were asked to test on that Sunday before they came back. And we did have many staff members that did test positive. So this was able for us to be a little proactive in having them test before they came back into the building. And then DESE over vacation, I'm sure some of you saw it on the news. They were also able to provide us with 180 test kits that we were able to supply our staff with last Thursday before the snowstorm. And again, asked every staff member to test on Sunday before they came back, just so that we know too that they're doing everything we can to keep our staff safe as well.
I just wondered, is there a protocol for students to have any tests?
So the students have we don't give out test kits necessarily to the students, but the students, we have a test and stay program here at the school. So if they are considered a close contact, they get tested here at the building. If they're not feeling well, they get tested here at the building. The one thing I am concerned about is students coming to school sick so that they can get tested. So we have been really trying to discourage that, obviously.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Stay healthy, everybody.
You too, Chris.
Thank you. Business manager, Ms. Costa.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Superintendent, members of the committee. Happy New Year. You have in your packet the variance analysis for the first 6 months of the year. Last month, as you recall, you approved a transfer, and that aligned and balanced several accounts that were negative, and those were mostly salary accounts. As we had put the school back together again, we had to realign the staff and move some of the money around to put them in the places that they were this year instead of last year. In general, the district is on track. However, you probably noticed that some of the accounts are over, and much of that is due to the increase in the cost of supplies, which for some of our shops has been astronomical, as well as COVID-related expenses. So one of the things that I will be doing over the next couple of months is looking to our grants to see where we can shift some of these expenses. We do have some COVID grants. Sometimes we don't end up spending all of the money as we originally planned. So when that happens at the end of the year, we will hopefully be able to move some of the expenses that occurred because of COVID increases. And that's the variance report that I have for you for the first half of the year. Any questions?
Mr. LaBella.
Yeah, I think this is a very valuable report. I want to commend Ms. Cosmos for getting out in a timely manner.
Thank you.
But she answered all my questions.
If I can just jump in, the prices of materials, especially for our trade areas, has increased 2-3-fold at this point. So as we're planning the budget, hopefully you won't see these kinds of things in next year's variance report. But as things are going, I can't make any guarantees, but we're certainly trying.
Any other questions? This is true.
I just wanted to ask Kara, on page 3, I just didn't know what these were. It's called, it says nurse office ESP. Can you tell me what that, I just didn't know what that meant.
Those are a couple of aides, paraprofessionals that were hired to help in the health office. And that's one of the expenses that will probably be moved over to the COVID grant once I have a chance to assess the funds available there as we get closer to the end of the year.
Okay, thank goodness for that. Okay, for all of it, for getting the help. What is also on page 3, stipend STP?
I'm sorry?
On page 3, it says stipend STP $4,000. I just wondered what it was. I didn't know.
I believe that's a maintenance stipend.
Okay.
One of the maintenance department. for their
Okay, and
stipends.
just one last thing on page 4, it says electrical service 38,000. Does that mean like we're saving that much money this year?
Right now we are, as you may recall, we entered into a contract to purchase some electrical credits from a place that was getting energy credits on the electric bill. And so far, we've probably saved about $25,000 this year because of that. So.
Good going,
So-
Karen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you. Stay well, everyone.
You too, Kara.
Moving on.
Do we have to vote?
No,
Oh, sorry.
What the mileage?
we'll get into that. February agenda items, the budget review will be coming. We also have to vote on the IRS standard mileage rates for 2022. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on that?
No.
Okay. Roll call vote. Mr. LaBella,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Havlin,
Yes.
Dr. Testaverde. Mr. Irving,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Yes,
Mr. Early. Mr. Early, I think you're muted. Okay, we'll move on. Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mrs. True.
Yes.
Okay. Subcommittee reports, executive. We did have our first meeting tonight for the budget. Like I said, it was the first meeting, so there'll be a few more before we finally get down to it. Instructional personnel, Dr. Testaverde.
We did not meet, but I think that Kelly, Dr. Face, and Ms. Jensen's presentations were very informative in regard to things that are going on with the instructional part of our program.
Plant operations, Mr. Tucker.
Has not met, and I don't think we need a meeting right now.
Salary negotiations, Mr. Early. No,
You want me to speak for that or?
yes, please, would you?
All right. We have met and we're going to be meeting again on the 19th.
Here he is.
well, there
Can you
you
hear me now, Brett?
Yeah, we're all set. Thank you.
Thanks.
Policy, Mr. Irving.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This evening, I believe in your package, you have the admission policy. If the committee remembers, 2 months ago, we approved the admission policy. And following that, the state came up with some new ideas, comments, regulations. So within that policy, we want to just add that on. It's been more or less approved by the administration. So in a minute, I'm going to call for suspension of the rules so that we can vote on this once and only once. We don't have to go through the 2 reading procedure. So if anybody's got any questions, they should ask the superintendent or the committee, subcommittee now, because once we go into it, there are no questions under the suspension. Again, the purpose would be to fast track this. We've already approved the admission policy, but the state has come up with some new requirements, and we want to come into compliance with that so the admission and committee can move forward in the spring.
I can give a quick reason why the state with the new regulations regarding admissions felt that it was important that we put this comment in our admissions policy. And basically it means that if a student is suspended for 10 days or less, they would still be able to earn all of their points for behavior. After the 10 days, that would be where a student would start losing points through the admissions process.
Can we approve photo this electronically?
We approved the policy. The state has come back to me last week and said they want this put into.
Oh, but I think I got an email that had this change it.
It's an adjustment.
We
Again,
sent it to you to
Yeah,
have you
and it
look
said
at it so we could approve it tonight.
Oh, down the bottom it said approve, and I just clicked on it.
Yeah, sorry, that might have been a mistake.
That was
Oh,
the original approval.
Yeah, that was the original approval.
what's that? Thanks for approving. So,
Oh, thank you for the approval, Joe.
Are we okay?
make a motion?
Anything else, Mr. Irving? We'll take a vote on that.
At this point, I'd like to move suspension of the rules.
Second,
We have to vote on suspension of the rules.
Right,
Mr. LaBella,
yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Haviland,
Yes.
Dr. Testaverde,
yes.
Mr. Irving,
Yes.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Troop.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we need a motion.
All right, at this point, I move the policy that the state has asked us to adopt be incorporated within our policy.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments, discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. LaBella,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Haviland,
Yes.
Dr. Testaverde,
Yes.
Mr. Irving,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor,
Yes.
Ms. Troop.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, meeting dates.
The rules are now in place.
Sorry,
The suspension is over. The rules are now in place. Parliamentary procedure on it.
okay. Executive Subcommittee meeting, February 9th at 5:30. Set for our meeting, regular school
Yes.
committee.
Mhm.
Regular school committee is February 9th. No other meeting dates that we know of. There is no new business posted, no executive session posted.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, Ms. LaBella,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Mr. Haviland,
Yes.
Dr. Testaverde,
yes.
Mr. Irving,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Yes.
Mr. Early,
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor,